Hello and welcome to my talk. My name is Missy Kofoed. I am a senior lecturer in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. Today I'm going to talk about my approach to using AI in my classroom, including lessons I've learned, things I've changed, things I've kept, and where I've kind of landed at for the time being. I'm going to speak most directly to how I've used AI in my Chem 1010 course. For some background, Chemistry 1010 is a class taken primarily by non-science majors, historically to fulfill the breadth physical science requirement. I teach this course asynchronously online, and although I have an undergraduate teaching fellow, this course is not supported by any graduate teaching assistants. I teach other classes at USU as well that differ in that they're face-to-face and typically taken by science majors, but are similar in that they're also high enrollment courses with a UTF but no graduate TA support. And this context is important because it really has informed what my goals are for using AI in my classes, both in Chem 1010 and my other courses. So ultimately, my motivation for using AI in my courses centers around the responsibility I feel as an educator to help students engage with AI tools thoughtfully, critically, and effectively, and also to extend student options for additional course content related support and assistance. This led me to develop an extra credit assignment that I provided for my students, and I have also spent some time working on the creation of a custom AI assistant. In 2024, I created an extra credit assignment for students. Prior to this, I didn't have much experience using AI, and I was also curious about how my students felt about AI, and I wanted to start exploring how this tool could potentially be a resource for my class. So I asked students to use AI to review 2 topics that they found challenging in the course, to submit screenshots or text summaries of their conversations, and then to submit a short reflection. This extra credit opportunity was presented to students towards the end of the semester, but prior to their comprehensive final exam. When I reviewed the student submissions, over 100 students completed the extra credit assignment. This in and of itself was a little surprising to me, given that this section of the course had about 300 students total. But of those students that took advantage of this opportunity, the vast majority of them found the assignment to be helpful, with many students mentioning that they hadn't considered using AI in this way, and or that they would continue to use AI to help them study or review concepts that they found challenging. Of the students who found the experience helpful, most of them mentioned that they appreciated the use of metaphors and analogies, and or they liked how they could ask for concepts to be broken down in a step-by-step fashion. There were also about 15 students that found the experience to be both helpful and not helpful depending on the concept. And as I was reviewing these submissions, I found that this often depended on how the student question was phrased. But also, as most of us have likely experienced, sometimes the answers or analogies that the AI agent provided were just terrible, and sometimes they were even incorrect. I also had a few students express their opposition to using AI. And so I've continued to keep this extra credit assignment in my course, but I've made a few modifications. First, I provided students with a little more guidance regarding how to ask questions and how to provide some background information so that they receive responses that are helpful. Things like prefacing their questions with, "I'm a student in an introductory chemistry college course." I've also included language within the assignment that allows students the option to complete the assignment without using AI if they don't want to use AI for any reason. There were also a few other insights from this assignment that I found to be helpful as an instructor. Not only can I see which concepts students are finding the most difficult, which, that could be done without AI, but also by being able to see the types of questions they're asking, I have a better idea of the little details that they're getting hung up on, and I've been able to more accurately pinpoint specific misconceptions. And so the results of this extra credit assignment, in particular the fact that most students found AI to be a helpful tool, but also that the AI responses weren't always 100% applicable or accurate, inspired me to work towards creating my own AI assistant, in this case a custom GPT. This is a feature that I learned about from a city workshop with Neil Legler. So for my custom AI assistant, I use ChatGPT. I'll share a couple of other AI models in a minute, but in ChatGPT, you're able to interact with the AI agent as you're creating your custom GPT to provide instructions and to upload documents and to clarify edits and changes. This was the first GPT that I had created, and I had a very specific approach, method, and formatting that I wanted the custom GPT to use. So between the initial setup and the fine-tuning, I would say the creation of this GPT, which focused on the topic of dimensional analysis, took me several hours. But if I were to use this GPT in my classes, I would also want to spend some additional time testing and fine-tuning, but I ended up abandoning this project for the time being. And the reason that I never ended up sharing this GPT with my students centered mostly around the ChatGPT limits for free accounts. So with ChatGPT, you do need a paid account to create a custom GPT. Anyone can then use this GPT if you share the link, but with the custom GPT I created, anyone with a free account hits their limits after working through about only one calculation. I've worked pretty hard to use open educational resources in my classes, and so I just wasn't comfortable providing my students with a resource where access varied depending on whether or not they paid for a subscription. This led me to consider other AI programs, but I ran into problems with each of these as well. So with Claude, which is Anthropic, you can only create their version of a custom GPT called a project if you have a team or an enterprise account, but even then, projects can only be shared internally. I also tried creating a Gemini gem, but this was more difficult to really create the highly specific tool that I was looking for using this chatbot. I actually ended up using a custom GPT created by another user that was specifically designed to help you create instructions for Claude projects or for Gemini gems. But what I found is that this gem that I created kept kind of drifting in its responses. So the custom AI assistant project is currently on hold, although I do think the custom GPTs do hold a lot of promise. And like I said, I felt like they were very straightforward to create, even though it took a little bit of time. The system that ChatGPT uses to create their custom GPTs was, in my opinion, the most user-friendly of the AI agents that I tried. Ideally, I'd like to create these custom GPTs for a wide range of topics if I was able to provide my students with equitable access. And while there are other AI chatbots that, at least from my experience, have more generous usage limits, I don't want to provide my students with a custom AI assistant if I can't guarantee that the topics and answers and approaches aren't specifically relevant to my course. They could obviously just use any AI chatbot for their chemistry questions in general. The last thing I've been thinking about is the environmental impact of AI, particularly in asking classes of hundreds of students to routinely use AI. So I've been spending more time using AI to help me continue to develop resources that I can provide to all of my students. I also have a colleague who has been using AI to assist in the coding required to create online problem-solving tools. And one really useful application of AI that I've been taking advantage of is that it can convert my Word documents with quiz questions into a QTI file that can be imported directly into Canvas. In the past, I've used the program Respondus for this task, but have found that AI, and I've specifically been using Claude with just a free account, can take my same Word document and with some insight into how the questions are formatted in Word, convert the file so that upon import you have perfectly formatted questions and answer choices in Canvas. And so where I've landed for the time being is using AI more indirectly in my courses and devoting more of my energy to ways that I can personally use AI to support learning in my classroom without also requiring that my students individually are using AI. As has probably been evident in my talk, my use of AI in my courses has evolved and will likely continue to evolve moving forward. Thanks for watching.